What makes a great scene? Is it in the performance, the writing, the cinematography? Is it in the boldness of the filmmaking or the fearlessness of the theme? Is it in how directly it grapples with the human condition? We watched a metric buttload of favorites and made a list to find out. These are our picks for the top 10 movie scenes of all time. Kicking us off at number 10, let's look at some of the scenes showcasing the explosive talents of actors plumbing the very extremes of the human range of emotions. We're talking about scenes like Tom Cruise's final confrontation with his dying father in Magnolia, Al Pacino's violent outburst about his lost child in The Godfather 2, and his court scene from Sin of a Woman, the secret about the son from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, the beating of Patsy from 12 Years a Slave, Kikuchio's discovery of dead samurai armor from Seven Samurai, and, of course, our number 10, the Russian roulette scene from Deer Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
It's a simple master, a couple close-ups, and a few different over-the-shoulders for each important relationship. But what most of those over-the-shoulders are highlighting is De Niro's incredible dynamic with his captor. I'm not sure if there's ever been a better example of genuine hate and rage on screen than his performance here as he marches up and down the spectrum of expression from fear and hatred to manic support. The stakes are life and death, but the potential payoff is 3 chambers of salvation, and De Niro's character perfectly channels his madness into destabilizing the situation just enough to take control and bring the two of them to freedom. Next up, at number 9, we're thinking funny. But not just in terms of most laughs per minute, we're looking for some artistry, vision, and standout creativity with our humor. And that's probably something like All About Eve's party scene, Some Like It Hot's final boat getaway, When Harry Met Sally's diner scene, Dr. Strangelove's phone call with Dimitri, or Monty Python and the Holy Grail's Black Knight. But our favorite funny scene is actually Modern Times' automatic feeding machine. This is a brilliant showcase of visual comedy and pacing. It pairs the hysterical reactions of Chaplin's tramp with the inanimate comic timing of a feeding robot gone haywire, brilliantly imbued with different personalities for each of its functions. One of the funniest moments is watching Chaplin stare down at the demonic corn feeder with a look of abject terror, only to be greeted by the gentle dabbing of the serene face wiper. Of course, when that's all said and done and it seems like the scene is over, the engineer tells us. Following up at number 8, we're going to spend some time marveling at some of the one-of-a-kind set pieces that deliver on the promise of their premise so specifically and with such immaculate marriage of craft and storytelling that you can't help but see the unique potential of cinema realized in a single scene. Children of Men's Car Ride Wonder combined fever-pitched tension with unparalleled choreography. 500 Days of Summer's reality versus expectations is one of the best examples of the power of juxtaposition ever shot. The Conversation's introduction builds a mysterious piecemeal narrative around sound and the lack thereof. Whiplash's finale was visual jazz, and Amadeus's transcription of Confutatus brought Mozart's creative process out of his head and onto the screen. But for our number 8, we think that Hitchcock's opening of Rear Window takes the proverbial cake. Quickly establish the personalities, dynamics, and conflicts of all L.B. Jeffries' neighbors in a few brief, beautiful shots, and you've got one of the best examples of efficiency in visual storytelling ever shot. But follow it up with a quick tour of his apartment, delivering every bit of relevant exposition in under a minute, all without any clunky lines like, "Hey, Jeffries, remember when you broke your leg?" "Why, yes, Lisa. I was there when it happened." And you've got the makings of a world-class clinic. But this is more than just a well-staged tour through a beautiful city block set. Hitchcock's use of camera angles and movement immediately establishes the voyeuristic, limited perspective of the film. Less than 4 minutes later, without a single word spoken, we are intimately familiar with the world our story is about to take us through. At number 7, we've got some superlative scenes that aim to absolutely wrench your heart out. Scenes like The Bicycle Thieves' final theft, The Passion of Joan of Arc's ending, Good Will Hunting's It's Not Your Fault, Royal Tenenbaum's Needle in the Hay, Short Term 12's Marcus Rap, and our pick for this slot, Persona's repeated scene.
Vad är det där? Vad är det du gömmer under handen? Får jag se? Det är kortet på din lilla pojke. Det som du rev sönder.
Watching Elisabeth listen to her nurse tell her the story of her failure with her son, gradually dissolving closer and closer to Liv Ullmann's listening, and I mean really brutally listening, to a heartbreaking rendition of her own personal failings is immensely difficult. But just as soon as you think it's over, we jump back to the start and see the whole thing from an entirely different perspective, allowing us to see the two separate stories of each woman's personal journey, each one immensely rattling in its own beautiful right. And while this might be dull and repetitive in a lesser director's hands, it never feels like we're retreading the same ground. The monologue seems completely changed, which is why we love it. At number 6, this slot is all about tension, and the scenes we think did suspense most beautifully are those like Goodfellas' funny How, Heat's dinner parlay, and Rafifi's incredible silent heist. There's Clarice meeting Dr. Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, Dennis Hopper provoking Christopher Walken in True Romance, and both the farmhouse scene and the pub scene from Inglourious Basterds. Taken on their own, these scenes are enough to keep you anxious for days, but we think that No Country for Old Men's coin toss stands just a bit above them all.
What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss?
Sir?
The most you ever lost on a coin toss?
I don't know. I couldn't say.
Call it.
One thing we like about a really good scene is how sometimes they can almost stand alone. They're like a drama in and of themselves, and you can just feel the essence of the film oozing from every cut. And that's what's happening here, as Anton Chigurh and a gas station proprietor spar over a wager only one of them really understands.
Look, I need to know what I stand to win.
Everything.
How's that?
You stand to win everything, call it.
Again, the camera work is hardly flashy. You probably won't even notice the subtle push-in once Chigurh flips the coin. But that's because the cat-and-mouse conflict of their conversation is completely absorbing, with Bardem cutting off Gene Jones's escape attempts at every pass. There's probably no better example of how effective this scene is than the moment when Chigurh tosses his wrapper on the counter and we hang on it, staring, feeling threatened, like the clerk by a simple piece of trash. Of course, not all suspense needs to simmer like this one does. Sometimes scenes explode, and oh god, is it glorious. The best of the best build a cacophonous crescendo of deadly frenzy until, long after we think we can't take any more of it, they resolve in a moment of pure terror and exhilaration. These are scenes like Reservoir Dogs' ear scene, The Thing's blood test, Yojimbo's influential showdown, The Third Man's discovery of Harry Lime, and Lawrence of Arabia's shimmering introduction of Omar Sharif. We love the good, the bad, and the ugly Sad Hill Cemetery standoff, but if it's going to be Leone, and spoiler alert, it is, we think it's hard to beat our number 5, Once Upon a Time in the West's train station arrival. No one else besides Sergio Leone has made boredom more gripping. From the dripping of a water leak, to the creak of a rocking chair, to the incessant buzzing of a fly, Leone works his audience up to a violent impatience. By the time the train comes screeching to a halt, we're thirsting for action in the best possible way. Follow that up with one of cinema's greatest reveals, one of cinema's greatest verbal exchanges, and one of cinema's greatest shootouts, and you've got yourself one hell of a scene and too many horses. At number 4, we've got a handful of hauntingly beautiful scenes that give us a serious case of frisson. Scenes like Schindler's List, Girl in the Red Coat, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind's Crumbling Beach House, The Truman Show's Final Bow, and quite a few Tarkovsky scenes like Andrei Rublev's installation of The Finished Bell, Nostalgia's Candle in an Empty Pool, and our pick for number 4, The Mirror's Burning House.
Пожар, только не орите. Пожар.
We have trouble breaking down exactly why it works. In theory, it's a relatively simple scene with a couple nice camera moves and a few beautiful moments, but in practice, there's something almost transcendent about it. Some je ne sais quoi in the dance of the camera, the poetry of the Russian, the glancing reflections of the firelight, and the final tableau that makes us want to stop analyzing and just feel, which is something we can't say about very many scenes, which is why this one lands on our list. Of course, our scenes can't all be slow and emotional. There's no other artistic medium that does excitement and adrenaline like film. Back in the day, Battleship Potemkin's Odessa Steps changed the world, and most recently, Sicario's bridge sequence blew our minds, while scenes like Heat's bank heist, Apocalypse Now's Ride of the Valkyries, and Psycho's shower murder have filled in the space between. But it comes as no surprise that there's still nothing better action-wise than our number 3, Saving Private Ryan's landing on Omaha Beach. This scene is simultaneously massive and incredibly intimate. First, pay attention to its tempo and rhythm. It's almost a visual symphony in how it's edited, composed, and sound designed. And second, notice the detail of every single shot. There is hardly a beat where we're not introduced to a new aspect of the horrors of war. Finally, watch as Spielberg takes that rhythm and those details and molds them into a perfectly shaped arc from nervous anticipation to chaos to gradual order, all serving the greater plot, action, and characters of the entire film. Of course, we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we left out sex and romance. We love Annie Hall's subtitled flirtation, Y Tu Mama Tambien's steaming jukebox sequence, City Lights' handheld moment of recognition, Before Sunrise's wonderfully subtle music booth, Before Sunset's pitch-perfect Nina Simone finale, and Before Midnight's painful 20-minute-long argument in the hotel room. However, our number 2 romance pick actually goes to none other than Barry Lyndon's card game Seduction.
Et la fleur?
This scene is so intimate it's hard to even breathe. Beautiful costuming, a master shot straight out of a painting, and lit by actual candlelight on repurposed spaceship lenses. Kubrick does so much with just a look, it's extraordinary. Notice how brilliantly the eyes are choreographed. When Kubrick wants you to pay attention to a character, he lets you see the whites of their eyes. When he wants you to switch, they look down or away, and then the other character looks up. It's a two-shot with all the focus of a close-up. Every single movement of these three actors tells its part of the story perfectly, all without damaging the naturalism of the story, and what a story it is. Desire, boldness, flirtation, suspicion, and betrayal, all without a word. What a masterwork. And finally, at number 1, sometimes there's nothing better than a simple conversation. Taking a page out of theater's book and focusing on simple human drama. As for great scenes that do that, where do we start? How about The Godfather's Bonacera cold open? Or Psycho's parlor scene? The Maltese Falcon's losing a son, Casablanca's beginning of a beautiful friendship, and The Social Network's bar breakup. Hunger's 24-minute long shot scene between Bobby Sands and the priest is a stunning work of performance, and Paris, Texas's peep show reunion through one-way glass is absolutely breathtaking. But for our number 1 pick, we haven't seen a scene in a very long time as gripping, as incredibly written, directed, and acted as the processing scene from The Master.
Starting now, you're not to blink. If you blink, we go back to the start. Infringement. You blinked. Starting now, you're not to blink. If you blink, we go back to the start.
The dialogue is so astonishingly complex, with each thread of questioning weaving in and out, sometimes breaking Freddy further down for the next one, sometimes providing the Master more ammo with which to pry, sometimes lightening the tone when things get too serious, sometimes trapping Freddy with his own gradual honesty. And PTA doesn't chop it up needlessly either, holding on each shot for exactly the right amount of time, neither overcovering nor losing pace. But of course, the real treat here is the acting. Philip Seymour Hoffman comes in under in a way that only he ever could, commanding a scene with the utmost subtlety and just well enough hidden insecurity, while Joaquin Phoenix excises some real demons. These revelations seem to truly challenge him, hurt him, shock him, and enrage him. It's an absolute masterpiece, which is why it's our pick for the best movie scene of all time. So, what do you think? We watched hundreds of scenes preparing for this list, but we know you're excited to tell us which ones we forgot and got wrong. So, have at it. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Cinefix movie lists.